makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part.
Online leftist drama went nuclear a couple of days ago after Kyle Kulinski finally admitted that Jimmy Dore is in fact a grifter and a fraud. A confession that, in my opinion, comes at the very, very least, very generously, 6 months late. I would say ideally 1 year late. And for those of us who have followed Jimmy Dore's career for a while, I would say this confession comes about 4 or 5 years too late. Anyway, this happened during a conversation that Kyle Kulinski had with Vaush, and I'm just going to show this particular snippet of that exchange, which I'll be honest, I haven't watched the whole thing. It's over 2 hours, and frankly, I'm not really interested in Kyle Kulinski in any way. So here we go.
In terms of Jimmy's politics, so what I've seen is there was a time when he would mostly criticize Democrats, and you got the sense it was from the left and it was to improve them. Then, over time, it slowly creeped up from like, okay, 70% of your commentary is going after the Democrats, 30% is going after the Republicans. Now it's like 80-20. Now it's like 90-10. And then it got to like 100% of the commentary is just like Democrats are bad. Now, if you have a platform, you have to realize, even if you think it's like, well, duh, the Republicans are bad, there might be some 14-year-old coming to your channel who doesn't think that's a duh, and all they see is you shitting on Democrats. And then you're sort of painting a misleading picture of the world. And then when it really got to a point where it was like, this is just sad now, is when the vaccine skepticism stuff started happening. That's when I saw the things on Twitter where it was like, here's his most recent however many videos, and like 60% of them or some shit were just like doubting the vaccine. And when I saw that, I was like, well, it's a good thing that all my ties are severed with everybody, because I do not want to be associated with that in any way, shape, or form. One of the things that is just inescapable is the shit that Sean caught Jimmy doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say this. Maybe I'm naive. Maybe you're right about how I'm like too kind in how I read people. But when I saw that, I was like, I cannot believe that Jimmy did this shit.
You know what I find very strange about this confession is that even if that Sean video hadn't come out, even if Jimmy hadn't doctored that article about Singapore, that would still not change any criticism that people like me have had about him. I mean, ever since this channel started, I've had numerous, I would say, very well explained and very well researched pieces on Jimmy Dore. None of this had any relation to, actually doctoring things. It's just merely understanding what he's saying and why he's saying it. And just with that mentality, you can realize that Jimmy Dore was a grifter and a liar well before he was actually caught red-handed. But, yeah, anyway.
No matter what interpretation you want to give of the situation, either, the idea that he himself, was the one who spliced up the article to change the literal meaning to the opposite of what it was, whether he did that or you believe the kinder interpretation that his producer did that and he just didn't read through the article and he goes out there and whichever interpretation you believe, either fucking way, totally inexcusable. Completely inexcusable. There's just not even remotely a good argument for anti-vax shit. And so my tolerance for that is so thin. And so when I saw that thing, the Sean thing, I was like, oh, Jesus Christ, man. You want to talk about you lost the plot. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Now, that confession was merely the tip of the iceberg, because this elicited a response from one of Kyle's former friends, and Cenk Uygur, who was also embroiled in a scandal involving Kyle, Jimmy, and basically the whole TYT crew. So this was his response. This was over the comments that Jimmy Dore made about Ana Kasparian's dress. And here's his comment, and it was surprisingly angry. Kyle also just figured out there's no Santa Claus. I didn't know he was this dense and that it would take him years to figure out the obvious. I'm waiting for everyone who equated this low-life grifter, Dore, to us and equivocated about who was right to offer their apologies. Damn, son. That was, yeah, that is harsh. But deservedly so, I think. And some of the comments were like, why are you so mean to Kyle? Well, the dumbass apologized to Jimmy in the middle of the original controversy because Jimmy didn't feel like Kyle had sufficiently kissed his ass. Kyle was so wrong. He thought we were the bad guys. Inexcusable, and we never got an apology once he pulled his head out of his ass. Yeah, so I was a fan of Jimmy, saw him live, had my photo taken with him. Then he slid to the right and towards vaccine denialism, and he picked up more followers from that side. Took me a while to realize, don't consider myself dense lobster in the pot. Seems like you also demand fealty. I don't think that's fealty in any way. I think that's just basic common sense. Dude, you were fucking wrong about an issue that was incredibly offensive to one of Cenk's closest, probably his closest collaborator, and I assume close friend, Ana Kasparian. I would not want something like that said to a close friend. And he replied, no, your story is very understandable. I give you a lot of credit for being independent-minded, getting to the right place. Kyle said terrible things about us publicly and sided with Jimmy 90%. Little hard to get past a friend doing that to you and never owning up to it. So, Ana then jumped in, and this was a rather funny and snarky reply. Be compassionate, Cenk. Maybe Jimmy blackmailed him. Remember, the whole issue was because Jimmy complained that Ana sent him a personal message threatening him that they were going to expose him, which then Jimmy claimed that was blackmail, which it really wasn't. It was a threat, and I think a very well-deserved one, but it was not blackmail. And someone asked, is it possible to reconcile if he apologized? Yes, but he never did. But demanding me to randomly forgive him after the bullshit he pulled is mental. And for the record, Jimmy's punk ass dragged him into something he had no business commenting on. He should be clear about that. Neither me nor Cenk wanted him involved. Yeah. The day that Kyle apologized directly to you, Ana, is the day I will forgive him, and that is what it takes. I would accept it, but he won't do it. And at least at this moment, he hasn't done so. So let's recap what exactly Kyle said that was so offensive. And this is this was back in June, July, when this whole scandal erupted, and Kyle made a pair of videos where he explained his position. And this is from the second video. Now, I made a video on the first one, by the way, which I'm going to link at the end, where I basically realized that Kyle is just bullshitting. Like, just complete. He's trying so hard to appease both sides that he really has no objectivity on the matter. And he ended up just burning bridges to both sides. Because what did Jimmy do? Jimmy was really the one who demanded fealty. Because the moment that Kyle wasn't 100% behind him, Jimmy made tons of videos. He called Kyle a nutless coward. I also made a video on that, by the way. He just, from that moment on, he went on the blacklist and received all the fury that Jimmy Dore reserves to everyone he hates, which is almost everyone. But here are the comments that Kyle made in that second video that I think were, this is why he needs to apologize. And I think Cenk and Ana are right that they will not reestablish any relationship with him unless there is more clarity on Kyle's part that this was really wrong. So let's watch these 3 parts from that video.
And so, even though I agree with Jimmy completely that effectively he was blackmailed.
He was not blackmailed. Ana sent him a personal message where she stated that she was sick of all the slander and bullshit that Jimmy was saying to her and to Cenk and basically to TYT in general, and said that from now on, like, the gloves are off. That's it. There was no blackmail. There was no like, oh, I have this information about you, and I'm just gonna, if you don't shut up about us, I mean, that's what blackmail is. That's not what happened. But anyway, he's repeating the Jimmy line.
He was threatened, and it's unfair. And he has every right to swat aside those allegations, and I'm happy he did, and he should do that. But the way he did it went a little overboard, and he was slut-shaming Ana. I'm sorry.
Yeah, a slight caveat, but it's amazing how he basically still defended Jimmy over this supposed blackmail and supposed threat. Of course, it got worse. Here are some other comments made during that video. I think this one's first.
Here's my text. Are we doing a show today? My calendar says we are. And Kyle says, "Hey, Jimmy." So again, that's at 2.5 hours later, after they ghosted me, he says, "Hey, Jimmy, we are trying to stay as far away from the war between you and Aaron and TYT as possible. On the policy, we agree much more with you, Russia, Syria, forced to vote, etc. We're disturbed by Anna's attacks on Aaron, but we also didn't like the way you talked about Anna's dress." Huh? What? The effing F? Are you kidding me? That's my good friend?
So Jimmy Dore is an utter nutcase. And it's amazing that even from a friend, he's not accepting any criticism of something really shitty that he said. Can you imagine that? Unbelievable. Anyway.
Yeah. So, again, I would have had to ask you about that, man. I didn't want to ask you about that. And I would have asked you, again, in what I view as a completely fair way. Yes, I think that they threatened you, and that's totally unfair and is totally unjust. You have every right to swat aside those allegations, and I'm glad you did. But when you did go overboard, and you did slut-shame her.
So, again, this is really just a pathetic trying to... ironically, for someone who's basically, not as deep as Jimmy Dore, but still in this kind of anti-establishment left, who hates like bipartisanship, and he hates reaching across the aisle and all these efforts that Democrats do to appease Republicans. He's doing the exact same thing in terms of his personal relationships, which is really, really odd. Yeah, this is wrong. And finally, this bit.
Here's the thing. I said early on, for as long as I possibly could, I want to stay out of this, I want to stay out of this, I want to stay out of this, I want to stay out of this. Not only because I know everybody involved, but also because it's ugly and it's personal. But you know what? At a certain point, I was dragged in and I couldn't stay out of it. So you know what I did then? I told the truth exactly as I see it. And my reward for that was losing all of my friends. It would have been a lot easier on me and for my life if I picked a side and argued for it full throttle. Instead, I told the truth exactly as I see it, and now they all hate me. I'm sure Aaron and Jimmy are not very happy with me, and I know TYT is not very happy with me. So, no good deed goes unpunished. If you tell the truth exactly as you see it, sometimes you alienate everybody. That's exactly what happened with me. And, by the way, to that first part...
And now I wish I had a backdrop of music from the smallest and saddest violin. But, yeah, that is the sad story of Kyle Kulinski, losing his friends. Now also realizing that Joe Rogan is his friend. Joe Rogan is also a grifter and a fraud. And dude, this is what happens when you just don't have a spine. That's really it. And you don't have properly developed, judgment of character. And most importantly, you don't have a gram of cynicism in you, in reading between the lines of what people say and what they actually mean. So this is kind of deserved, to be honest. And I'll be honest, there's something. Look, I don't think that Kyle Kulinski is a bad person. I think he's I'm sure he's a pleasant guy. I would much rather say have a beer with Kyle Kulinski than I would with fucking Jimmy Dore. But there's something about him that I find really weird, or rather, I don't understand how someone with almost 1 million YouTube followers, just doesn't have like the proper niche in terms of his political views, etc. And he doesn't realize that people are just moving so much farther to the right than and yet he's kind of generating that impetus, you know what I mean? Because basically people like him, people like Crystal Ball, people like Brianna Joy Gray are the gateway drug to then go into Jimmy Dore land or Glenn Greenwald land, which is now proper far-right reactionary. And part of me thinks that this is done deliberately. I definitely think people like Brianna Joy Gray and Crystal Ball are doing it deliberately. But still, a part of me thinks that Kyle is still too naive to realize that. And I just genuinely don't understand what his niche is. I don't understand. If you look at his the people who follow him on Twitter, or you don't have people who are like passionate about anything he says. So this is just weird. The no one comments on leftist politics online and is like, well, this is Kyle's take on this, in the way that you have so many other online left pundits, you know. You just don't hear people say that. So I really don't know what he's trying to do. He's anti-establishment, but not as anti-establishment that so many people would rather want to see. He's you know, more professional looking and sounding than like a streamer, but also not serious enough like something like the Majority Report. What is that niche that he's playing? I've never understood. But yeah, he should apologize. And I have nothing more to say about this other than just I think I might have said this before in another video that I made about him, but just be cynical, man. Just be, you know, cynicism is a good trait. I think it's a positive trait if you're in the business of politics, in the business of understanding politics. You need to be super fucking cynical about everyone. Like, you need to have them prove that they are not grifters and liars, and not just assume that people are trustworthy by default. And I think that's the problem with people like Kyle and some other pundits, and then they end up disappointed that their friends and possibly idols turn out so sour. So yeah, just be more cynical. Trust me on this. And on that note, if you like this video, please like, please share. Most importantly, please subscribe, and I will see you next time.